Hi, this is Beb. Another update about the development of my game The Descent. Last time I told you about two new NPCs I coded and added to the game, the Overseers and the Walkers. It took me some energy. In particular, I had to learn a lot of new aspects in Unreal and in C++, and to relax a bit I spent the last couple of weeks adding some basic sounds to the game. Of course, there were no rush of adding sounds, and I could have waited for later, but I love to see how the game will look and sound like. It helps a lot to keep the motivation. And sound design is fun. After I added some basic sounds to the game, I also compiled a version with what I have so far, and did ask a couple of people to play it to start having feedbacks, as I think getting feedbacks as soon as possible is important. I will tell you a bit more about this in the second part of this video, which will be slightly longer than usual. Okay, let's start with the sounds. Up to now, I had no sound at all in the game, and had to start with the most basic thing, footsteps. For these, I used freesound.org. It has a lot of very nice footsteps. Most of them are, however, field recorded and sounded too much realistic for the game. Still, I managed to find one that fits well with the kind of boots Zad is wearing. I simply had to separate the sound in several individual sounds and make a meta sound to randomize the output at each step to get more variations. I did the same with the footsteps of the Overseers, using a different metallic sound. Finally, for the global, I did use the same sound as the one I used in my previous game, which is also from freesound.org, but sounds a bit more cartoonish. I found great ambient sound for different backgrounds. I did design a couple myself some times ago, but they were not suited for the starting levels. I keep them for deeper levels of the game. For the various doors, I had the choices between two different sounds and decided to use a basic air tank sound. I like it very much, as it is quite soft. So that's it for the sound I got from freesound.org. For most of them, I did a very basic edit, maybe changing the pitch a little bit or adding some reverb. For the remaining sounds, I decided to design them myself, either entirely from scratch or by mixing a personal sound with one from the site. I first recorded several sounds in my house. For this, I took the mic I was using while playing music some years ago. It's a Shure SM58. I really love this mic, and I'm super happy with it. But it is not always suited, as you have to record from pretty close. So I also took a Zoom H1N that my partner is using to record some interviews, and which is very convenient to carry around. I first recorded a metal cup falling on my desk, which after a bit of edition gave me the sound for the globule falling on the ground after losing all their energy. I did also record a soft book falling on a cloth to get the sound for Zad's death when she falls on the ground. But most of the fun was working for the specific sounds for the NPCs. I wanted a kind of stream of bubbles for when the globule tried to purify the parasites with the blow of steel particles. I thus recorded my Waterflush. Yes, the Waterflush. And I did mix it with another sound of bubbles I found on Pixabay and added a ton of effects, like reverbs and some flanger and so on. I was happy with the final result, as it does sound a little bit like a strum of bubbles, without being too cartoonish. I used the same bass sound for the Overseers when they attack the player, but added in the background a monster noise I got from freesound.org. It was also fun to design the sound of the elevator, as well as the underground train passing by during the shortcut scene. For these, recorded sounds were not super good, so I just designed the sound with a synthetizer, Massive. This is all I had to tell you about the sound design. It's always a lot of fun to do and also super rewarding, as even with basic and very unprofessional sounds, it completely changes the way the game is perceived. The only drawback is my kids making fun at me while I was recording every stupid sound in the house, particularly the water flush, of course. As I told you at the beginning of this video, I did compile what I have so far, which is a sequence of 3 levels, which include a couple of puzzles, and ask around for people to play the game in order to have feedbacks. A friend of mine and my younger son gave it a try and gave me some interesting comments. They are both regular gamers in different genres. My friend plays a lot of RPG and CRPGs, and my son likes platformers and is getting into speedrunning. To start with, they did not like much the camera system, or at least they found it sometimes frustrating or confusing. My friend even suggested that I had a free look mode so that the player can take full control of the camera and have a better understanding of its surroundings. For me, this is the most important negative feedback, as I want this camera system to be part of the gameplay. The fact that the player doesn't control the field of view is supposed to play an important role in the puzzles, for instance. I definitely have to reflect more on this and see if I can limit the frustration without changing completely the system, as it is in fact pretty flexible and there is a lot of freedom in the way the camera can be organized in a given level. One reason I want to keep the camera system is that I think it brings something interesting in terms of the general atmosphere. The fact that the camera is often pretty far from the character and cannot be controlled adds to the feeling of being observed, and I like the distance it creates between the player and the main character. This brings me to the second important feedback. A positive one this time. Both players did enjoy a lot the general atmosphere. For instance, they appreciated this long corridor the player crosses at the end of the first level, or the small cutscene with the elevator. For both of these, the camera is in fact moving in a straight line, which makes me think that I should probably rework the other cameras in the level to avoid too much movement, or at least to control the camera movement so that it seems less confusing. In any case, this was quite encouraging. Before they started testing these levels, I was afraid that the puzzles might be a little bit cryptic. But it was overall okay. For instance, in the third level, you have to sneak behind another seer, and for this you need to pass walking, as it would hear you if you pass running. There is no visual or audio indication of the noise level, so I thought players might get stuck there with a lot of frustration without thinking that they could actually walk. Particularly because the levels are rather large and the run speed is kind of slow, so the player is probably gonna run 99% of the time. The major complaint about the puzzles was rather the respawn, and the frustration to have to redo not super exciting tasks after failing. Typically, at the end of level 2, we have to first bring 2 globules to remove a parasite, and the true puzzle only starts after that. During his first try, the player is expected to die here by jumping back on the ground, and the puzzle is simply to find a safe way back from the mezzanine down to the ground. It needs a couple of tries before having the idea of blocking the elevator at a middle stage to be able to jump back in 2 steps. So redoing each time the globule phase is annoying. There are other places with similar problems. I was expecting this particular feedback, and I actually totally agree, as I myself feel frustrated sometimes when I do some playtests myself. This will be easy to fix, however. I already have implemented a waypoint system in the game that records the progression of the player in the level. It's a kind of soft autosave if you want. And I simply have to add a couple of more waypoints at particular places. On the good side of feedbacks, I was expecting a lot of bugs and typically some of the NPC getting stuck or having some strange behaviors, but all went smooth so far. So finally, the last feedbacks were all about QoL. Keyboard shortcuts remapping, levels are sometimes too dark, the run speed is a bit slow, you need a save system, and so on. I include all of these, of course, but this will be way later. So to conclude, the tests were not a disaster. I'm happy with it. And that's kind of encouraging. I'm a bit worried about the camera system, to be honest, and I hope that I find a way to make it smoother. If I can't, I'll have to rework it, and this would have to be done soon as it will impact how I design the various levels and puzzles. Well, we'll see. Okay, that's it for today. I'm happy with the state of the project so far, even if I don't always have enough time to work on it. IRL is sometimes complicated. My next objective is still to introduce NPCs on the glitchy parasite side, and to start trying to design more complex levels with more complex NPCs interactions. So the next video will probably be about that. Thank you for watching, have a nice day, and take care.